quick rundown is going to happen, and then one quick announcement. We want to introduce Chuck, hearing from Chuck to tell the microfinance transparency story, which is done with the presentation. We'll have an opportunity for you to ask questions. Look for the Q&A box that's on your WebEx panel and type in your questions there. And then when we start the Q&A session, be able to check your questions. Please make sure that you are asked that are easily answered in two, and not something that will be too lengthy, because we'll probably have a lot of questions. We want to get to everyone's questions. Before we launch into this webinar, that we're excited to be doing two webinars this week, two during the SMDP New Hampshire certificate, which is taking place this week in Durham, and Friday, 2 days from today, we'll also be doing a webinar 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You can register for that webinar at the SMDP SMDP webinar site. But the topic is the business of doing good. This is a new book that's out in the past couple of months by Anton Simonowitz and Catherine Knotts. Basically, looking at MFI in Cambodia, called AMK, but really looking at the bigger question of how we can build really microfinance organizations that are pro-poor, treat clients well, treat staff well, and are really good contributors to the community. The book that Anton and Catherine has written is really it's really interesting, really, I think, useful for people who are looking at where do we go forward with microfinance from 2015 on. So please join us on Friday for that webinar. Waterfield has been a friend and been a former faculty member. He was part of the MDA staff faculty here for 4 or 5 years, teaching in New Hampshire, teaching in South Africa, and his very useful tool he developed with Tony Sheldon. Microfin was really one of the industry standards for business planning and financial modeling. But everything changed in 2007 when Conference went on to the place, sold shares in an IPO, which really changed the face of microfinance forever. Chuck was instrumental in helping helping Thomas before the IPO, years before, and then when the IPO occurred, he a very kind of forced and very positive way to try to bring some transparency to the field. So we're going to hear Chuck's story today. You have a chance to ask Chuck some questions. Finance transparency, as you saw from the headline, the webinar promo is going to be going out of business, and we want to hear about say as a future points down for MFP. So I'm really glad to have you here with us virtually, and I know we have many people online and many people in the classroom interested to hear what's going on with MFP and your story. So welcome.
Hey, thank you, Bill. Thanks for the invitation and the introduction. This is essentially pretty last time speaking as CEO of MFTransparency, or anyone would be speaking as a CEO of MFTransparency. So the purpose of this time together is for me to explain why we're closing and what implications that has transparent pricing and the industry, and what ways the industry can the task that MFTransparency started, but is declining to continue. Okay, so I've got some slides here, lots of pictures, and to try to collapse whatever that is, 6-7 years of activity into a handful of minutes. And so I'll go through it, as I often do, pretty quickly, but in order to leave time for questions. And then since this is recorded, you've got the slides there if you want to go back and scrutinize with a magnifying glass any of the up, you're more than welcome to do so. Okay, so let's see now. Oh boy, let's see if there we go. Yeah. So here's what we've covered in those years. I say I think everybody knows MFTransparency was successful in many ways and a little more successful than anybody expected us to be, including ourselves. But there's no way to continue that. So the success is there, and we have ideas. We have proposals on how we can continue, not fall back into complete non-transparency. But there's the map covered. We worked in the countries, loans going to over 50 million people. We learned a lot. We have pricing data over those years from 5, and we are published later next month learn from that pricing. So we've got the data. What can we learn from the data? There's 3 phases I'm going to go through quickly, but this is helpful for you to see what we did and the successes and failures of each phase. Very first phase, first for 3 years, MFT, we did it alone. Okay, so we collected the data, we published the data. That it was necessary. We're trying something new, and we're doing it in countries that have never been transparent before, so we couldn't really hand it off. Okay, phase 2, starting in 2012, we'll start hand off to partner, and we had 3 different partners: Planet Rating, MFIN, did India, Pakistan Finance Network, Pakistan Planet Rating, helped to refresh data in about 10 countries, and also do for the first time. So the idea here was that T staff, much smaller staff, we weren't doing the work, and supervising staff of these other 3 organizations. They collected the data, passed it through MFT for verification, and then went on the website. So it still looked the same to the public, but organizationally, it was different. Now but the biggest was the incredible amount of time to get data. Even refreshing, this is the point, and hard to believe, but maybe not so hard to believe. Go back to institutions that were published on our website. We had done that in the first 3 years. We go back and say, okay, your data's up there. It's a year old or 18 months old. Let's refresh it. Give new data. How to do it? You only have to tell us what changed. The process was faster and easier, and you're already over the hurdle of transparency. It'd be a piece of cake, right? No, it took months. With almost all the MFIs, it was a process of months and dozens, in some cases, well more than 100 emails and phone calls to refresh data that was already there. And after those months and contact attempts, percentage of MFIs just declined to put up new data. It did not get easier. My expectation was that it would get easier after the hump, and not the case. A few countries certainly, say for example Cambodia and Bosnia, almost country was cooperative in refreshing data. So this created a problem. It wasn't getting easier, wasn't getting cheaper to collect data, and our analysis, our theory was that we didn't have enough leverage over MFIs. This is a point that's really key in the area of self-regulation. If you self-regulation is voluntary, and got to create the environment where MFIs are willing to be cooperative. You cannot force them to be cooperative. We, MFT, didn't have leverage, and even these 3 partners don't really leverage. There's no way to compliance, okay? A really key point. At the same time, we've been working with regulators over the last several years, but that's another area I won't go into right now. I'll put in the question area. But forcing MFIs comply. Voluntary regulation, MFIs have a choice, okay? So phase 3 came along, and we said, well, all right, this is our last. I made this very clear starting in late 2013. We said, okay, it's not working. There's one last option. Unions with leverage. We invite you to collect the data. If you are funding an institution, you have a closer relationship. Your gather data, get pricing data also. Okay. We also worked out a way where this could be grouped and shared. For example, an MFI might only have one be to one network. That network could get the data. Let's say network like say Axion or Finca or ProMoPay or somebody. An international network, not necessarily a national network, but that works as well. But here's an idea. Okay, an MFI collected to multiple members, a member of one national network, and getting funding from two social funders. Right now, and good thing, this is a progress thing. Literally, the last several years, many, and a growing number of these social funders and international networks have been collecting price data to some degree. But what? It's not shared. It's not transparent. It's part of the data collection to assess risk and performance, and it's confidential. Okay. So now, could we set up a way so that all of those other actors collecting data could pool and share that data? So you'll see this up here, member access website. Stage one was to say, well, we can't really share it with everyone. Maybe we share it. We can form a member group. Let's say there's 20 funders and networks. We all collect data from those that we want to. And here, look at this case. Instead of this guy having to give data 3 different times, and then give it to MFTransparency, this FI would only have to give it to a funder. That funder pools it, and the other networks and funders get to see it and use it. Okay, so it's easier for the MFI. It's faster and cheaper for everybody. It avoids duplication of effort. Work, and we talked MFTransparency talked to over 40 potentials. Again, funders and national networks, and they were willing to try it. Okay, so we tried pilot. We got 10 of them involved. We 5 countries for the pilot. 3 of them to refresh data that our MFT had already done, so that should be unquote easy. And 2 new countries to see if this approach might work in a country where MFT had not already broken. Okay, we went through and we took the list of 10 partners and 5 countries, and we found 64 MFIs in those that had a relationship with at least one of those partners. Okay, then we kind of pooled it out. If somebody in MFI had a relationship with 2 or 4 partners, we assigned it to one of the partners. Also streamlined our methodology so that could be done with a pricing map. I'll get back to that in a little bit later, so that these partners could get the work done in 2 hours. Okay, so that's not so bad. That's pretty fast, I thought. We thought, but the reality that almost the partners we talked to thought 2 hours was a lot of time per hour. MFI was a lot of time and a lot of money. Could make it faster. So that's an issue that came up as we moved into the pilot. Okay, so here's the results pilot. Lots of numbers, but planned on this 64 MFIs. We planned for 3 months. We ended up having to extend it. Why? Data wasn't coming in. Okay, now here of the 64, the 10 members declined to collect data on a total of 22 of them for a variety of reasons, and there are limit reasons in many cases, or I can maybe say all cases. Okay, 2 of those MFIs that we had on our list in Nicaragua were no longer around, and 1 relationship had terminated. So then we're down to we've lost 4%. Then they contacted 20 MFIs. The MFIs that they contacted either said or didn't even bother to respond. Okay, and 19 out of 64, 30%, yeah, will participate. Okay, 19 out of 64 said we'll participate. Not great, right? Now, of the 9 happened, okay? Of the 9 that happened, 7 of them did send data and then never sent any data. So that's 11% of the 64. 4 of the 19 sent in some data but didn't get all the way through. Okay, 8 of the 19 process. That's 8 out of the original 64. So we're down to 1/8, 13% of the original pile. Yeah, not so great, right? Now 8 out of 64, right? You see by country. Half of them were in the Philippines, 2 in Azerbaijan, 2 in Nicaragua, and nobody from the remaining countries. Now, of that finished, the partners started 5 of those 8, and MFT actually went out and started 3 of the 8. We contacted them directly. Of the 5 analysts, the analysts got through and got complete analysis for 2 of those 5 and handed off to MF staff to finish off the analysis and review of 3 of those 5. So here's the partners actually did from start to completion 2 out of 64 in the Philippines. Okay, FT did all the way through on 3 out of the 64, and we did handoff on 3 out of the 64. So MT had a heavy role in 6 of the 8. We got 8 out of 64. This is after 5 months of work. So the potential, one thing went wrong, right? There's no way you would continue that. Either you'd have to fix something, or you just have to say it ain't going to work. So why the MFIs not like to agree? This has been true for 7 years. So it's been true for 2,000 years. Okay, until it becomes obligatory by government law that throws you in jail if you are transparent. Okay, you don't want to be transparent if you're in the minority. You don't like public criticism of your prices. You don't like knowing the price. You don't like the reporting burden, even if it's an hour or 2 of work. It's accused of being a reporting burden. Okay, and there's a significant percentage, a lot of MFIs out there, goal to find the data. I mean, we're not asking for a lot of tech data. We're asking for things that literally an organization should know all those numbers in head. They shouldn't even have to look on a report. It's necessary information to run. Okay, but still a lot that tried and failed. Okay, so now funders, what about those asking? All right, as I already mentioned, 2 hours. Wow, 2 hours per MFI. Our staff are really busy, and time is money, and already being asked to collect other social data, and this gets added onto their tasks. You know the drill. And again, there's a legitimacy there. If missing data is not an absolute priority, it settles down to the lower part of the list, right? Of the list. Also, the partners almost always dated this to social performance team instead of, got your analysts that like the quote unquote real data, the profitability and efficiency data, collect the pricing data. No, that's considered a social thing. So you give it to the social team, right? So that's reality. That almost everybody's doing that because it's not prioritized, right? And some partners, not just because you have a connection with a partner doesn't mean you have a real intimate closeness with the partner, and that's the reality of life too. So the part ask with all sincerity, but the MFI just says, well, we're too busy. Okay, so point being the only funder this is pretty important, okay? Being the only funder requesting pricing info. We're competing. Life is set, competition more than cooperation, okay? So you've got an MFI, and you got 3 funders trying to win the business of the MFI, and the MFI is playing the 3 of them off. If you're the only one of those 3 funders saying, we believe be honest and open about your pricing, and the other 2 don't, the MFI has a potential nation to select one of the other 2 instead of you. So by accepting more transparency and more ethical behavior, and if the other funders aren't only talking ethics and not insisting ethics, guess what? Yeah. So that's the reality. Okay. So we look at this. And we've tried it for 7 years. We've tried it 3 different ways, and we've talked to a lot of people, and we've interacted with 500 institutions, and we just say, said 2 years ago, last chance is if we'll show you and help you collect data. MFT is done collecting data. We'll show and help you collect data. There was a witness. There was an ability to carry through to get results. So I looked at the writing on the wall and just said, that's it. We can't. We've run options. Okay. It doesn't mean the industry's run out of options. It just means MFT's run out of options. Okay. What are we doing these last months? And the month's now down to a couple of weeks. We're distributing as freeware our pricing tools that anyone and everyone can use, and MFI can use it and assess their own prices, and they could share that with whoever they want. Funder networks can continue to do it for internal diligence process, or they can look for a way to share it more broadly. Ratings agencies and certifications. The tools can be used, and it really just takes an hour or 2, depending on how complicated MFI is. Any data collected in the future won't be published on the website. We're keeping the website open, and the educational materials and the pricing tools will be there, but no new data doesn't go up. Okay, so that's what we indicated back in early March. There's a lot of discussion. We imagine a number of you saw some of the blog postings and the back and forth, and I published a couple of answers to the most frequent questions we got, and certain welcome. You can go back and find that and read through it to get a little bit more depth. Now here's, as we talk about, and I want to take about 5 or 7 minutes to talk about what you can go. We start with transparent pricing. As you all know, we've moved the industry very quickly, and thankfully started about responsible practice, and also started using a term called responsible pricing. But do we have what is a responsible price? We don't. Okay. MFT is, this is area. This is our expertise. This is our obsession. This is where we look at data. We understand this data better than anyone else. Okay. So we've got an approach we call balanced pricing, just to avoid confusion with the responsible pricing thing. But this can and hopefully will be done by at least us. All right. That's a slide that I kind of went through that. The tools that would be available and some documents that we've got. Okay, but here's the thing. This is one example of this responsible. One of the definitions of responsible pricing. Okay, the Smart Campaign certification says, well, we'll look at what the market is charging on similar loans. So this is pulled out of their Compartamos certification last year, and they Microrate went in and looked at a $500 loan from sampling of, I think, 6 in Mexico. Oops. All right, so let's go back. Okay, and some, one of those was charging 153% on a $500 loan. One was low as 94%, the lowest, 94, and Comportamos was 105%. So that was considered a market price, even on the low side market, and therefore did the title of a responsible full $500 loan in Mexico. There's laws with that, okay? We don't know who those 6 were. We don't know what the other loans are. Here's the reality. An MFI does not have one price. A product doesn't even have one price. Look at this graph. This is a really important slide. And I'll walk you through it. Now, the green line, that's the portfolio yield. This is a finance trust in Uganda. Go mix, and you look up their portfolio yield, and it's somewhere around 60%. Okay. Now, the horizontal axis here shows the loan size, and now the rest of this data comes from the MFTransparency website. These different loan sizes of products, and you can see they have 5 products. So the dark blue one that's product 1, and the price. And we took 4 samples. MFT got 4 samples of that one product. And clients getting a $12 US dollar loan had paid an APR of full price of about 80, and it's getting a $100 or $100 loan. We're paying full price of 140. Okay, so that product has 4 prices. Oh, it has more than that, but we took 4 samples, and those 4 samples had 4 very different prices. Take 10 more samples and maybe find more, but our experience shows that if we took 4 samples, it would follow that pretty closely, that curve. That's why we had the curve in the logo, because we see curves in prices. The smaller loan amount, the higher price. Okay, now here's the second product, and a little lower in price and not quite as sweeping of a curve. Now the size of the bubble is how many clients. So here's another tiny little product right there. There's hardly clients that have that loan, lower price. And here's another product with many clients. So what do you, for that MFI? Okay, here's my question. MFI charge a responsible price. They're over the map, right? And you cannot dumb it down. You be smarter. So portfolio yield is ignoring the difference in the products and which, how many clients have each product, right? Portfolio yield also misses compulsory deposits, and a lot of times it doesn't have insurance income in portfolio yield, so forced insurance can also, these prices are high, they go up. In this case, there is forced savings going in there, right? So you've got different portfolio yield flawed. An average price of that institution, flawed. You've got to recognize that there's a map, a scatter plot. We call this a scatter plot at MFT now. These are the prices and the distribution prices of how many clients. Okay, that's essential, and you cannot answer reasonably the question of responsible pricing without looking at map. Okay, so that's what we do. That's what we're doing at MFT now, and we're sharing this approach with the industry. We're looking at pricing and looking at a balance between what business needs and what the client can afford. And where we recognize there is no single market price in any country for a product. You can't do that. And looking at, like in Mexico, there's arguably imperfect market competition. Okay, that's why it's a academic fact. Their profits so high for all those institutions charging over 100% in Mexico because the market ain't working. All right, and the clients don't understand what they're being charged and essentially oligopolistic behavior. Okay, so what do? We need to go beyond this, and we've got here where we use a weighted score of we define what is it we define what a responsible price, a threshold price should be, and then we overlay it on the pricing map and see how many of your clients are paying over that limit and how many are under. Okay, I've got about 3 minutes. Okay, and so get those questions ready. Okay, so now this is really fundamental right here. So some have seen this, but this is the key. You've got to know that there's a cost curve. There's a cost curve as well as a price curve. Here, really simple. This you can't argue with the logic right here. Okay, this explains it all. If I spend $50 to a $500 loan, my operating cost ratio is 10%, and the industry tells me I'm more efficient. But if I want smaller loans, if I want to work with people, i.e., small loans, but I want to spend the same amount of time and quality time with those, I spend $50 per client. Now my operating cost ratio is 20%, and the industry starts to say, hey, not so good. Why are you wasting money? Why aren't you as efficient as the institution across the street that has an operating cost ratio of 10%? And you say, oh, because our loan sizes are smaller. Okay, now you want it even smaller loans, like in the Philippines, for example, or Mexico, down to $100 loan size. You can't spend $50, so you say spend time with the client, and you pay your staff a lower salary because you're dedicated to lending. So you get your cost down to $30 per client. A $100 loan, your operating cost ratio still went up. That you go from 10%, small ones 30, small ones 20, 30, and you graph out and you look at a mixed data and you find the curve. Okay, so how do we need to price if we're balancing
Sorry, we seem audio. Andrew.
Can you please retest your audio? Oh, we hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, alrighty. Okay, sorry. Hope you didn't miss too much. So here, let me. We're going to look at.
Yeah, just go back to that screen. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to look at financial costs, loan loss, and operating costs. Which ones vary versus loan size? Okay. So this is data from the mix. 24 MFIs in Bolivia is between 2 and 5. All right, and big MFIs with big loans versus those MFIs with small loans. It's flat. That's a statistical curve. It's flat. It's not a curve. It's flat. It's a line. So, and a small amount. It's about 3%. Okay. So there's no curve to financial expenses. Loan loss. Okay. Bolivian, pretty good payment. Average of 1%. Tiny loan, tiny number, and flat. Matter if you're given big loans or small loans. 1%, maybe 2%. But Bolivia at the operating cost ratio, you're wonderfully efficient at under 10%. Yet you're also given big fat loans, $6,000 average loan balance. Those MFIs having much smaller loan balance are less efficient. It's a mathematical fact, and it ends up being a curve. If you go too far this way, there's a curve. Okay, so what we have to do? if we're going to define a receipt, okay, we say here's our financial costs, and that's pretty much flat, and we're going to in a decent loan loss, that we're competent at selecting recuperating, so that's flat, but the operating cost is a curve. And then should we make more profit off the poor, the richer of our clients, or should that be flat? You decide. You add those components together, and that becomes your responsible price, your balanced price curve. So here's a proposal, for example, okay, on loans relative to the economy in your country. On a loan that's really small, don't worry about that title yet. We're going to see the data in a minute. On big loans, a responsible price. Big loans are not as big as Bolivia. Loans at 1% of GNI per capita, 30%. But on a 40% of GNI should be 35, and a loan at 20% should be 50, and a loan at 5% can be as high as 75%. That becomes, so then we or any network could plug in their numbers. Any social funder could plug in the numbers and generate this curve for what they define as a price that would balance the needs. Remember, profit even worked into there. Balance the needs of the business, the sustainability of the business with fairness or ability to pay a client. Okay. So there's the threshold line. Now, then you go in and you generate prices, use our pricing tools, you spend an hour, to generate the price map, okay? And you overlay it, so here it is. The green line is the threshold showed you, and here's the pricing map of a real MFI in the Philippines that we collected data on. And you can see their loan sizes there, they're kind of over here, and their prices are low. Their threshold. Only a small percentage are above the green line. There, that one's a little above the green line, that one's above the green line. But most of their client base is paying below the threshold. So you calculate the percentages, and the institution would get a report card that says, yeah, they're pricing responsibly. A few clients are getting gouged, but the vast majority are not. Okay, let's look at a second institution in the Philippines. Okay, this institution, they're focusing on smaller loans. They don't have the loans over here. But wow, they're all every single that one's not above the line. The green line, pretty much their entire client base is above the threshold line. So what should that institution get? What are your prices, man? And they're, if you're, guess what? This institution also happens to be swimming in profit. Okay, so you can correlate prices. You can then, this approach allow you to look at a real price map with a little bit of subjectivity, a responsible price, and you can go and look at their profit. And if guess what? There's in my experience, there's a high correlation between prices above the threshold line and high profits. Duh. Okay. So here's those two institutions together: the one below the line, and the one institution with all the prices, virtually all the prices above the threshold. So you can go and grade. You can look at how many clients are over the threshold, how many under. That gives you a percentage, and then you can assign a letter grade. Okay. We assign grades and everything else in the courts. Are you efficient? Yes, sir. And again, guess what? You get a D because you're inefficient because you only give small loans. I mean, the grading system on a lot of those areas is flawed, but that doesn't mean grading systems are flawed. It just means they need to understand microfinance better. Okay, so this is our approach, and again, our tool will be out there in a couple of weeks, along with explanation of the methodology. And any of you, and an MFI that wants to be can download that and look at their own prices and look at their own pricing map versus the threshold, and then they can decide if they want to how to tweak that price. Okay, that's the presentation. If there's time a little later, at the end of the question session, mentioned about balanced profit. Do also I, not MFT, me as an independent individual, also have another website, another report card on how much profit is too much profit. And you've all heard me say that line for 8 years now. I won't go into that right now. Instead, here we are. Okay, MFT to recap. For breaks in the audio, MFT tried it. We were successful, but it was a pain in the butt to get. It didn't get easier. It didn't get cheaper or faster. In fact, participation rates started to drop. We tried different approaches to getting data. Then we asked those with more leverage, more power, relationship, MFIs to get the data, and they couldn't or wouldn't, or a combination of the two. So getting MFIs to be transparent on pricing, voluntarily transparent in pricing, there is no easy path. There's not even a path that's less easy. Option, forced threats, regulation, shaming, what needs a combination of those factors to the majority of MFIs to be transparent. Some are willing, but then they're in the minority, and when you're in the transparent in the minority, it's a pain in the butt. It's not easy. Okay, so we are. MFT can't do it, but we can show how we've learned from pricing. We can all continue to study pricing. We can all continue to analyze pricing of membership. We can decide if we are in agreement with the pricing of the MFIs we are funding, and if not, we can walk away. We don't need transparent pricing to make that decision to walk away or how to advise that MFI. So prices can continue having a transparent place. Prices are book information to any and all. Happen ain't gonna be any way for it to happen. Okay, so that's it. That's it. 7 years of insanely intense work in this area. We're glad we learned a heck of a lot, but we learned we can't keep doing it. We need regulation. We need regulation, not self-regulation. Okay, that's it. Questions?
We have a question from Lauren Bowden. Where to get the last tool, and how do you set the green threshold?
The tool will be available right on the MFTransparency website for free. It'll be very clearly marked, and the tool has our proposed control. Okay, so green line. We have a rationale of how we picked it, but it's so customizable. So if you're working in a country where that global average that MFT settled on you don't agree with it, or if you have different put margins than MFT, you can customize it. Because this isn't going into a universal database, it becomes a tool that you can use and customize to internal pricing analysis. Okay. Now, if there's an entity that, or if there becomes a path, and this would be great, where that it become public, published somewhere or in some ratings reports, then the industry can agree on what that threshold curve parameters are. But again, MFT alone, all by our lonesome, can propose, but we can't insist, nor would we honestly want to. We want to get the dialogue going. Thanks.
So it's from the TCM. It says, and my question to Chuck, in which do you think stakeholders in the industry can continue this work? What would you to make sure the work on pricing transparency is not clear?
All right. Price analysis, pricing data collection and interpretation can and will continue by those parties willing to do it. Transparent pricing, other in some countries, isn't gonna happen. I didn't have to say that, but that's you. It just ain't happen. You find countries. India's a good example, and Bosnia is a good example, where you have regulators forcing disclosure of pricing information. There are a lot of other countries that add some form of pricing disclosure, but I don't name those countries. For example, Peru, because it doesn't cover all the lenders; it only covers some of the lenders. Okay, and it's a murky transparency law. So to get the high level of universal standard that we had through MFTransparency, it's just not going to happen. Again, country by country. Yeah. Yeah.
We actually have our participants in the classroom that would like to ask a question, so I'm going to ask him to introduce himself, and then he can ask a question. Your name?
From Ghana. I try to find out how easy it is in arriving at the balancing in same pricing. Look at the clarity and business need. And most MFs in Africa, where the interest rates are high, I'm looking at is easy in determining the affordable price. Look at affordability and the business need.
Right. Well, okay. The challenge with anything like this is that there's two sides of the equation. What does the MFI deserve or need to be sustainable? And here, I happen to pull up, that's Ghana. That's the prices in Ghana. And there's one vastly large, you can come down here, and large one is SAT with 150,000 clients. They're charging pretty much 9% to everyone. And then you've got everybody else is small and charging anywhere between 50 and 400%. Okay, but hung around. Basically, you got to pay 100%. Okay, so in Ghana, do the MFIs need to charge 100% to be sustainable, or is some of that profit, like lots of profit, or some of that due to should be streamlined, or institutions should be larger? Like, look at the number of borrowers. We got a lot of institutions right here. They're small. I mean, that's look at that, just a few thousand clients. So they're not very big. Okay, and so if you charge a high there, you're passing on your inefficiencies, your economies of scale to the poor. Okay, so once what do we need, and the other side is, and then again you can sort of go through the analysis of one to a reasonable size, and if you manage like best practice, what would your costs be, and that would define what you need to charge. Okay, so that's the green line. On the other side, what can clients afford to pay? All right, we love to say those 500,000 clients in Ghana, even though they're all really poor, they all really willing to pay 100% interest month after month, year after year, and are better off paying us 100% interest. Trust us. Now, here's where we do not, well, we have some data. Okay, I don't have direct data, but I scratch my head. Okay, how is it that poor, mostly women, are paying 100 or more % over and over and being better off, that the numbers don't add up? And months ago, the Journal of Applied Economics published the large studies done microfinance, and none of those 6 showed significant positive benefit. Yeah, some managed clients are better off, but net difference of us charging 100% in Ghana, the net difference is that some are better off and others are not, and the result is 0. Okay, that's said. We lowered our prices and lowered our profits. Those that a profit, the pocket would stay in the pocket of the client. This is zero-sum game. If we lower prices, the client is better off by definition. How we raise our prices for self out of indices or high levels impact comes down. Because that's the math, the way I see it. So there's that threshold curve. You build it up based on where you stand, and then you put yourself in the shoes of the client, and then say, can these clients should they really pay? Do we feel good charging them 100 or 200%? Should they really pay 100 or 200%? Are they really better off paying 100 or 200% month after month, year after year? And I think the answer to that question is probably not. I'm sorry for the long answer, but that's the reality.
Chuck, we have a question, actually a question. Sorry, get the technology to work with me here. So you mentioned you'll be publishing a report from the lessons learned by MFT. Where will that report be available? At the MFT website?
Yeah, very prominently located. This is the MFT website. We have a homepage, and we have this news and resource, the recent news and resources, and we actually have hundreds. I mean hundreds of things available. So you can use the search box right there, and you can type in. Let's type Ghana, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that we got on Ghana. We've got 10 pages of stuff on Ghana. Got pricing reports, and we got articles and news things. So you can, poke. And here's one last way to look at it. We've got the resources table view, so like the reports that we've got. There's type in Ghana right there, and you get price report. Click that plus, and you get a little description. Click on the link, and then you download it. There's the country survey, and there's the launch presentation that we did, and you click on that, and it takes you to here with a description, and you download the presentation, and it's all there, and then none of it's going away. None of it's going away. New stuff is being added in the next month or so, and if stuff comes along, that's relevant, so the only thing that's really changing is there isn't any new data. Come looking for new data. You're not going to, but you'll find everything else still there. Okay?
Yeah, a member of our class, go ahead and introduce yourself and ask questions.
Hi, Chuck. My name is Ibrahim from Kenya, and thanks for the presentation, very eye-opening. So transparency is a huge issue in this field, of course. And my question is, in regards to how do you localize transparency so that now the clients or the customers have the power to institutions accountable? And did the organization try that route? Because it seems like by empowering the local community to hold the institutions accountable by using the data, that will be seems like an active approach to me.
Sure. Now, and here's the reality. It's a big world, and MFT is a really small organization. Literally, we had the last few years we had 3 people. We're an organization of 3 people. So how are the 3 of us get 200 million poor people around the world to the price Index is charging, right? We can't do it, okay? What we have been doing, that was never our purpose. Our purpose was to help the industry, the upper level stakeholders in the industry, to, for the first time, the price charge, to see the prices we charge, to learn from those prices and move toward intelligible decisions about what's a responsible price, and then to act on those decisions, okay? Now, we also, in parallel, here's prices for cake. I happen to pull it up. Only average price is only about 50%, with prices going up to about 100, okay? Now, what did we do? We worked with regulators because to be able to get data to the clients. The regulators can have forced lenders to do that, and that's called Truth in Lending. And right here on this website, here on this page in our website, you've got the countries we've evaluated in lending legislation for a variety of countries. We tell what's included and what they missed, and whether they ban. Zambia bans flat interest, for example, and Bolivia bans flat interest. Hallelujah. Those are good things. So you can find that information here, and my organization has the information. We've held seminars, conferences with regulators to say, you could do this also. In fact, we held two of those regulator training events in Nairobi, okay? And the regulators could obligate all lenders in Kenya to publish the true price and tell the client before the fact how much this is going to cost them, and to give them a formula and what needs to be in the formula. That's done in some countries, but not from all countries. So that's the missing ingredients. MFT would have been a complete to think that MFT was going to be able to get that information out directly. MFT might be able to help some countries. Well, we did it in India. We helped in the India regulatory process to make their prices more transparent through training that we did with them. That's really the avenue. MFT isn't wrong, but it means any and all of us could be working with the regulators, advocating for truth in lending, and that I know, really long answer, but here's our strategy 7 years ago was MFT. We need to step in until regulators can take over. We are a stopgap measure, a self-regulatory stopgap measure until the real regulators can make MFT unnecessary and redundant. Didn't succeed in that in very countries. Okay.
So, Chuck, one more question from the classroom from Nelson, who you know.
Hi, Chuck. I'm sort of embarrassed to be this old and have been in the field this long with because I'm this naive. But a number of years ago, rating agencies appeared on the microfinance scene with some fanfare. And my question is, why wasn't pricing part of their mandate from the get-go?
Yeah, well, okay. The put portfolio yield up for by okay, and raise agencies, with exception, I'll get to in a moment. But rate agencies are looking at risk, okay, and so they obsess over the C rating and the portfolio quality rating, and they analyze how profitable you are. But pricing is, here's the real key point. Pricing is a consumer protection issue. It's not part of the process in the United States, for example. I don't believe banks. I believe they put the price in the ratings reports of banks. Now was, and so an exception, Planet Rating before MFTransparency came along. Planet Rating was already calculating the prices and putting the prices in the ratings reports because they were saying, it's an important, more. They were. It sounds like my mission is that they were cusp of the social side before the other agencies got involved. Now the other ratings agencies are also now finally, again, there's a good thing from the last years and, MFT being around, the rating agencies now, you saw Microrates doing it. So it's not just Planet Rating anymore. The other, and I know I've trained Microfinance staff in their offices as well. The ratings agencies now do pricing data, but guess what? It's not transparent. These reports are not transparent. So we do have press. We have more stakeholders calculating pricing. Oiko Credit collects the pricing data of those institutions they fund. Culture Jump collects the pricing data of those institutions they fund. Many funders are doing that, and many networks are doing that, and the ratings agencies are doing that, but then that data stays locked up in a drawer. Okay? So we've advanced on collecting and interpreting pricing data, but MF was the only path for getting it to be literally transparent, and we can't do it. Okay, that's how can we move forward on pricing, continuing to be to value pricing, to make sure we have pricing data, even if there's no transparency. It can be done. It can be done. It's done. Oiko Credit should continue, and Micro continue, and Planet Rating should continue to collect data, and every stakeholder should be looking at, even though it's not sitting on MFT's website. Yeah. Better than letting the fall back in the vacuum. And the did start putting up portfolio yield about 5 years ago, after I gripe about it in every single power presentation I made for 2 years. Yeah.
Chinese. One more question from the classroom. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Ruskiat. I work with a microfinance bank in Nigeria, and Ben just asked, and as a practitioner, I want to point out something that has to do with pricing and what people's perspective is. First of all, one endorse our smart campaign principles, likewise microfinance transparency. However, in trying to get certification from smart campaign, for instance, you need to get you need to be audited maybe by MCRIL or something. Do you know the cost it is to have one of these persons come and examine your institution to see how satisfied you are? It costs money to do that. Yeah. I know those organizations are coming in this. They are supposed to certify us, to certify me, to give me a certificate. The amount they're charging me is quite ridiculous. Who is going to bear the cost of that? You also have to look things like, yes, you look at occasions and locations where these microfinance institutions operate for. For instance, in Nigeria, the cost of providing financial services is not easy. Is it going to be the bank that will bear it? Is it going to be the government that will bear it? Who is going to bear it? Microfinance institutions in Nigeria are privately owned. We're not being supported by anybody. We're not being supported by anything. I'm going to mention Oiko Credit. Well, for funds from Oiko Credit, I'm glad to say that we're getting something from them. The interest rate is the cheapest. And one of the good things they did was to look at our pricing. And we also have a commitment that, in some commitments that we signed, for instance, in first times, my interest rate will come down to this amount. There's some holds on certain products that have to be done. There's some commitments that we're getting from Oiko Credit. But other access to funds, other funders are not socially responsible. If I get funds at this particular amount, there's no how it will not impact the pricing, and that's the only source of funds I have. So pricing, when we talk a lot about pricing, people do not hear from practitioners' perspectives. I think there's this ideology: price is high, price is high. How do you survive? You need to be sustainable to continue to provide access to finance. So I think all these things need to be put into consideration. I approached MCRIL, we approached some agencies to come and rate. The amount they quoted for me is quite ridiculous, because we want to get our smart campaign certification done, but we do that because the cost coming to me, it's high. It doesn't make sense. So we balance all this.
Chuck.
Oh.
What a time. This is audio. Could you repeat your question? No. I don't know his audio. He was probably just, overwhelmed. Chuck?
When he comes to the class.
Yeah, okay. Well, it appears that for you, out there, we have lost Chuck's audio. I don't know what exactly happened. Yeah, we noticed, Chuck, your audio is not working. Back. Oh, great.
All right.
Okay. Did that question?
Great. Oh, yeah. And it was so.
It was a statement question, I know.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of a, I mean, yeah, we'll just call it a question. All right. No, I do understand. I think really at the heart of this is the
So we're going to get the end one way or the other. I'm calling on Skype, and you'll be able to hear it on the. If you wait, Chuck and me, we can't hear you. Answer Skype. Oh, there he is. Voice message greeting. We don't want that. All right. Well, I think we're not going to hear the end of that question at the end. I'm apologies to you listeners, but thank you for. And I want to remind you that we have another webinar on Friday, 10 o'clock, where we'll be Simonowitz talking about his book, That's of Doing Good. So thank you very much for attending this SMVP webinar. Appreciate your attentiveness and your questions, and wish you a good day.